As if you.
Hi, this is Laura, mother of 5, an author.
And this is a mother of 3, a practitioner on the side. We are tutors and our families.
Worlds. Here we talk about family and time, figuring out childcare to maps. We want you to get the.
Welcome to Best of Both Worlds. This is episode 200, which is airing in mid-recording from my office. And I have the love of me sitting, and I did not make her sit in the floor of my closet, which is where I normally record. She gets a little bit more civilized treatment with that, but welcome to Pennsylvania, Sarah.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I brought Genevieve on her own to see my parents. My parents' house is about 15 minutes from Laura's house, which is actually kind of a funny coincidence. And
Instagram, so some of them can choose everything that people certainly take some of them. Head and dive right in. And the first question, answer it too, Sarah, but driveway.
I'll go the length of our car bit. To me, but yeah, not long.
I was being asked, by the way, is because I am right after my husband having jerry-rigged our minivan to carry a bunch of garbage cans and recycling cans down to the street. He had one on top of the minivan. He had 2 in the trunk, which seemed to indicate that there was enough distance being covered that this was worthwhile. And it's true. We have a fairly long driveway away from the house than us. So that we're in the, 50, 80 yards. So carrying, pick your stuff up by yourself. You have teenagers, they can take things like help if they're here, but they're not always. That's how long that is. Do you get back into a habit when your toddler?
Okay, this is a question. I guess I would say wake up at night very much, some sleep training, and it did weaning. So I don't know if that's a factor with this person, but if you are looking to get that longer night of sleep, that's something to possibly consider. Although that is a whole episode in and of itself, and we have had experts come speak about that in the past, so I won't get too deep into that. But I guess I will say, if you are not getting enough quality sleep, it does take a night that could have been to 5.5 hours to do anything. Negative side is going to out early, but there were phases and those were the phases in which I schedule myself and wake up early. What time are you going to bed? Morning time, in a way, is that like if they hear a tiny, so that can kind of like mix that to some extent. If you go to bed very late at night, you might still be able to get at 8. I'm not saying that's realistic. If you did want that extra morning time, it's going to come at some kind of a cost.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a kid who's waking up overnight, you can have some time, but you can't have the time after they go to bed at night and the time in the morning too. Like you're going to have to choose one of them. So if you're staying up late I don't know if you have hanging out with your partner, or you're not going to get the morning time. That's just the reality of it. If you do want it, then you probably time shorter, getting up early if you're tough. Or just of life. I mean, we hear the morning routine, remind ourselves that this who are either
questions. Okay, I had 2. Can I have 2? One would be to just go back to Hawaii because that's where we went on our honeymoon. And I would love to go and just do Maui and Kauai. Just would be so relaxing. We could do lots of I would mix the roughing it on hikes and then really, really sumptuous restaurants and spa treatments. And I think that's probably would be my number 1 pick, with Iceland being a runner up because right now.
Yeah, I would say, it's not with kids. I would do one of 2 things. That would choose some sort of in place that involves lots of the children are just not European capital. I don't know. We brought them to some sort of European. But then the other idea is that it took a long time. It's also something that you probably on small children and on your Fiji. I mean, and do that.
Fiji also sounds lovely.
Fiji, yes. Or any sort of, it looks like Truck Island. There's a bunch of Pacific islands that are known for their diving, and I'm sure have lovely resorts that diving. This podcast contribute this or this plus B.
Okay, was this just for me? I thought I'm assuming we're just talking about breakfast, no BLP, that much to anything. But so I'm not my income somewhere between. So not. Yeah. It just depends if we're also talking before breakfast. Before breakfast is about a personal income. And then this, contributes a small, not huge, but we always look, people are feeling the need. Friends to listen, that helps impressions. And if you want to join our Patreon. And a couple that have been guests on our podcast, and then one other one that maybe in the future could be a guest on our podcast. So one of them is Edit Your Life with Christine Coe. I just love her. I really enjoy her podcast. It used to be a dual co-host, Asha Dorn. I liked it before and I like it. Yeah, I just enjoy podcasts where they're a little stage of life so I can kind of listen. So that's fun. Like the No Stupid Questions podcast this a few times with Governor and Angela Duckworth, favorite running podcast. Actually, I'm going to go with another that is also a running podcast, running more recently. So I've just been a little bit more recently they did, which was really, really fun. It's picked exclusively people's channel onto Best of Both Worlds.
Yeah, I would say everyone should listen to Best Life podcast. I would recommend this. I listen to every week to the Happier podcast with Gretchen Rubin and her sister, so Elizabeth Kraft. So yeah, those are three, which I'm sure many of our listeners are already familiar with all of those, because those people have all been on our podcast in the past. So, we really do try to listen to, and of course, people to have on as well. We're going to go ahead of this Ask Me. And well, we are Ask Me Anything episodes from my office here. Already been interrupted once, but where are you? That's this next question. So this eye surgery sounds terrible. Wow. Family ship afloat from that, your partner can take some time off from work or scale back for hours that would be outside, that you would be covering. If you have another relative or paid caregiver who can step up during this time to do some of the things that you were doing, because as for a lot of women is to the things you do and you feel like undermining your own recovery winds up taking I've definitely seen this, for instance, a recovering challenging birth and to do everything and wind up longer road of it, because so hard as it is, things may not without you. But I would say as much as you can focus on call in what you need to call in. I'm assuming you're not really even look at stuff.
Other eye.
They'd have the other eye.
Be like, ideally you wouldn't even have to do this because everyone else would know all the rhythms of the family. But in reality, if that's not the case, to just go through, okay, this is how we, do this. This is how this week is there. But also not specific standards of how you do things. Getting takeout this week. Great. Not like,
yeah, that maybe for the next week are activities that are challenging. It's not get to karate to be okay. You can, if people are to school, it's also not the end of the world. We would hope that happens. It happens. It's often hard doing a morning routine people. So I think just, give yourself space for things to not say, but the primary long with life continuing better. And that would go for any sort of a parent is.
For them, two different ones in the time that we've been with her, but that's her choice of car for kids. It's her own car. I think she actually enjoys having kind of a fancier car, and then she doesn't want to put mileage on the fancy car. So she likes to have like I don't want to say beater, but like a car that can take some beating for my children to drive back and forth to work. And so she chose, and it never like, I want you to cover the car. I'm not been fine with it, but it never seems. So yeah, that's what she drives. We've always course and actually order now, Miami Beach. So it's a great car, and she's a safe driver. To hiring her, we did over how we did that, and it was great. We felt confident that an issue.
With gas prices being what they are, the acceptable reimbursement per mile rate, and so she's driving her own car. You could pay for the gas or the mileage reimbursement. Some people might consider helping with car insurance or something like that. Our first nanny that when we were out in the burbs, and so a car, but once you have like 4 kids, don't have their own Honda Odyssey. So I know no one we've hired has ever. We have that is kind of so I have a car, Toyota Sienna, which is can drive, that they make a mess, a lot of miles on it, but if they're driving your car, they use car insurance. I think that would be your auto insurance company.
Make sure car seats are installed appropriately if it's their car.
And if it's their car, there's the question of car seats, because I don't know if they're going to have the car seats all the time. I guess they have the car seats going back and forth. Maybe they're not using. We always bought
an extra set. Like we supplied the car seats for her van, and we just had an extra. We didn't move them.
Yeah,
we just put them in.
But what I'm saying is one of the considerations here is if your caregiver is not wanting to have car seats in her car, you've got little kids to work through that reality, paying to get them in and out to you want to ponder, want to go there. Have the Toyotas on it. So a lot of people have driven that one now. Tips for expecting.
That's all you.
That they aren't going, I'll just take care of the baby and do my very challenging. I mean, maybe they're immobile infant sleeping a lot, although they can work or might need to be held a day. Like who knows what kind of. So if you plan to continue you need some sort of childcare. I'm not saying you need 40 hours a week, but you probably need something. So figure out what that's going to look like for you. I would say don't hold yourself additional maternity leave. Again, if you, by all means, just understand completely stay 4 months is a rather major event. And so stay with that. Or I won't be completely off, but I could say a week or two, do a couple hours. Then I might scale up and on after the first month to 50% for the next 4 months. Fine, but really have like that. So you might need to do work, but you can with it and full time for a while. So 3 tips. So I guess the childcare, looking outside the traditional maternity leave. I would say you can take yourself seriously and have other people take you seriously too. And probably you have more confidence this way than when I had my first kid and was not yet with necessarily the majors or done things that I'd done. I got the sense from cute little thing you're doing, just a mom or when work and the reasons I wound up writing.
And I think thinking ahead of I think a lot of times people focus on like the immediate postpartum like baby phase. Like they picture having this little nugget in their life and they forget that like that nugget so quickly becomes not a nugget. And all of a sudden they're walking around and all of a sudden they're like talking and all of a sudden it just goes really, really fast and no one phase. You're never, have your childcare set up changing. And that's good because on stressing, that another one's bad because there's always a next change. I remember as you were speaking, she did the first year of my niece's life because she wasn't yet walking. And shout out to Warm and Fuzzy. And once my niece not viable because she was running all over, they found a great daycare. But just like remembering that
trying to focus at work, like it'll drive you crazy. And, people are like, well, I'm bad at time management because I, can't get anything done. It's like, no, it's you're trying to care for a mobile toddler and do your business. Like this is a solvable problem with childcare. So I'm saying, I guess that is really all 3 of my my top tips is to not assume that you don't need it, or even to give yourself so you don't need it. Like I'm going to use this entire nap at night. Like no, like gift of some sort of hours. Again, it doesn't have to be 8 to 2 would allow you to probably keep your. All right. So same thing you outsourced besides.
So I've been inspired. She can drive to school. She can drive that's been so important. So even though it's not really another thing to outsource, I think having that as kind of part of our overall package has been just incredibly valuable over the years.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like house cleaning is, you're not going to want to put time in your little kids and between work and family responsibilities. Probably, if you have 2 weeks in services here, there's like at least a week or so is some sort of, because still pain points for a lot. You pick your work, it's like 5:30, but you still have to make. And so if you there was something that was pretty much, that would be great if you have that. But if you don't, you're using daycare, consider having sort of, pre-made meals that you can buy from various places. Or, there's various delivery services that, even if it's just 2-3 nights a week, having that off your plate here, and then you can do something, the other scrambled eggs or a salad, sandwiches, those are all things that can 15 minutes. Anything other than scrambled eggs and sort of pre-made meal that maybe throw it in the car, or it's just something that can heat up. And so you just have to have that, give the kid a snack in the car, and that can pain point and make it terrible. I would throw out breast, could come to an agreement in the baby and but they can feeding you. And so that winds up being a pretty good split that a lot of couples come to.
Oh, that's cute.
Yes.
That wouldn't have worked for us, but I think it did when my husband had his 1 week of maternity leave, he did make me dinner.
He did make you dinner once. Nice. That's great. All right. How do you motivate yourself or ourselves when goals feel overwhelming or out of reach?
This definitely happened. I think for me, really excited about striving for before, and to actually take a step back, because it's going to be a month of recovery, a month of getting the help I need going on that makes me not want, and maybe set some goals like I'm going to sleep this week, and that's going to thing that could possibly be that. So I guess an answer is to set new goals for another cycle after they happen. In periods of my life have, when I found myself really in that like low place, have sought out help or, different things like addressing maybe hormonal changes that might be impacting your desire to do anything. So sometimes there's something fixable, and it's definitely worth, working with a professional or really thinking if there might be something underpinning that lack of desire.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, you need to be really truly committed to them. It helps to just focus of time. Writing a book, you don't have to, maybe tomorrow you write 200 days, yards, right? Like, I mean, it's drill it down into like praise from running, like run the mile. I very really difficult half once where, or whatever, like you run for whatever reason, 5 to 8 and mile 5. I'm like, I go, I have 8 miles to go. And then I would go run mile 6, and then I would go run mile 7. And so, by the time I was in mile 10, I was like, well, I only have 3 miles to go. 3 miles is not that much. And, I've run 3 miles thousands of times, so I can do that. I think, big goals, we're trying to looking at the next big goals accomplishable and to incredibly small. Never have a chunk that really inspires resistance. So small and so doable. And you're like, yay, I did it. And now more. And then the next day you'll always feel okay with it because you're in.
I like goals or career goals or
Shakespeare goals, a couple pages a day. It's never. All right. Our last question, start of a nanny relationship, the transition or relationship.
Or we needed her, meaning I only had one child at the time and I had a full-time, we started at one daycare we didn't love, but then I did have another option for another full-time daycare that was great. But I just second child and I had a long commute. I would be better off rather than later. So much better to like adjust 4 or 5 months being born. Because if okay, you have a new person you don't know is taking so hard for all of us. The transition was needed her, keep a quote unquote school. She was 16, but to not come and then like adding less than if we had all those moving parts. Yes, was very, very worthwhile.
Excellent. Yeah, I do well too. But I mean, I've seen other people to make you happy and to solve your problems and whatever else they have been brought in to do. And if you aren't willing to communicate what those problems are or your particular preferences, you're feeling, and they're just bewildered because, a crazy thing, like it doesn't fold a certain way on a room. And so you're always, when you come in and it's like, you're going to have to can live with it, which I would live if I'm envisioning, because the person doesn't want to be in the house. And so, you're in an, off. I would say, knowledge about your particular, your things, your pet peeves, share them, sheepish about it, be like, this is really funny, but it's, speak up and do something. So that's just what I'd say that some people have had issues with, is not communicating. And so by communicating, you can solve a lot of problems pretty quickly.
And make sure you're keeping the lines and making sure they feel facing any concerns. And I think a little check-in, okay, how are things going? Anything just to make sure everybody's on the same fester if you don't.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they have some constantly stepping on, and probably you wouldn't want to know that, right? Then having a tense situation. All right. Well, this has been back to a love of the week.
Love of the week. Okay. My love of the week, solo trips with one kid. It's great. I mean, on time, but need to really have one-on-one attention. As from a parenting perspective, or so. Nice time with Genevieve. So set that up at some point.
Resort my family went to a couple of weeks ago on our vacation. So chicken salad is creamy, but it's mayonnaise, right? So there's no dairy in it. And it's got a little crunch, sometimes with the grapes and the celery, some almonds or apple, good stuff. And just, you can make a real fill to do more of that. I intend for curry chicken salad. I guess I got to get myself. All right. Well, now this has been Ask Me Anything from Mania. We will be back in Life Fit Together.
Thanks for listening. You get theshoebox.com_shoebox on Instagram. Find me, Laura.com. This world's podcast. For more on making work